Hello Deep Value community, thank you for tuning in. Today's video is about free cash flow. How to understand free cash flow, what is free cash flow to the owner of the business, looking at capital expenditures, looking at capitalization of intangibles. So if you're new to the channel, please subscribe now so you can get my next video installment. So before we get started, this is a video for Edward Allen that wanted to understand about what is actually cash flow in real terms, because a lot of financial websites report cash flow in not really the most accurate way, and it's important that you kind of get really stuck in there and understand just what to look out for, like what is the entries that should be not included. For example, stock-based compensation, for example, capital expenditure, for example, intangibles. So let's get started. Okay, so we come onto the website that my favorite website, which is the SEC Filings, so sec.gov, and you type in here the name of a company that you want to look at. So I'm going to look at Now because it's a company that I'm quite familiar with. I don't have any position in Now, but it's a company that I follow regularly, so I'm quite familiar with what I'm looking for. So I'm looking at the 10K. You can also look at the quarterly reports, but the 10K is really my favorite because it just tells you everything you need to know about the company. Between this and the proxy statement, you're going to know exactly what you're getting yourself into. So if you come on to the financial statements and you look at the cash flow statement, so here's the years going up, 2017, 18, 19, and you can see that on the surface the company is making increasing amount of cash flows from operations, sometimes called cash flow provided by operating activities. Sometimes you'll see a line below this that says cash flow from discontinued activities, but you really want to look at operating activities. That means the business's cash coming in from its core operations. This is really what you want to price the company on. So this video is really about free cash flow, but there are a couple of entries you need to become familiar with to understand what is free cash flow. Now, free cash flow is the cash that you as the owner of the business can take out of the business. Now, it is the cash after costs have gone into the business. Now, many investors have this debate about what is growth capex, and some investors like to look at the amount of property purchases for property and equipment, or PP&E, or just capex, and how it measures to depreciation. So there's the assertion that people say, whatever in terms of the figure for depreciation and amortization is, whatever's above that in terms of capex is really growth capex, so you shouldn't really include that. Now, I'm not a fan of that. I believe that you need to look at the hardest amount of cap, and you can make the claim that I'm being just too conservative, but this is the way that I think about it. So you need to look here, purchases of property and equipment, and you need to look at business combinations. Business combinations is another word for acquisitions. Okay, so you need to consider that, and you need to consider this figure here as well. Okay, so in case of ServiceNow, I've chosen it specifically because it's not one of these shocking players. There are other companies that are significantly worse in terms of being a regular acquirer. Now, in the case of ServiceNow, it has purchases of other intangibles. This is another word for capitalization of intangibles. What this means is that they are avoiding taking a hit on their operating cash flow, and they're putting it on this line. This is a recurring cost, and it's an increasing cost. You can see that it increases significantly in 2017. It goes from approximately 7 million to 24 to on this way 73 million. Now, this next bit of thinking, it might alienate some viewers because it's a little bit advanced, but I'm going to try and really simplify it so that at least as long as you watch it and you're kind of familiar with it and my line of thinking here, you'll learn something. And if you don't learn today, maybe on the next time you come across it, you'll learn about it. So here's stock-based compensation, okay? So you can see that this is increasing at a rapid clip. So if you compare as a percentage what its operating activities are versus the stock-based compensation that gets added back as a non-cash expense, you're approximating half. That means 50% of the cash flow from operations is stock-based compensation that is added back. And you might say, oh, that's no problem, it's fine, it's a non-cash expense, I'm not going to consider it as part of calculating free cash flow. Now, allow me to say something. This here, you can see that over time, the amount of stock-based compensation is increasing. This means the company is giving out shares to its top executives, okay? So this is a rapidly increasing number, and as we just discussed, this approximates 50% of the cash that the business made in 2019 was paid out as stock to its management. Now, here, if you come from cash flow from financing activities, you can see that the company is receiving some cash coming into the business. This figure here is executives cashing in their options. So they're paying a certain amount to the company to cash in their options, okay? And the company is paying out the taxes for the options. So you can see that this is a very large outgoing. So you have to consider this type of numbers when you consider how much free cash flow the business does. So the way that I calculate free cash flow is, in my case, I would look at this number here, which is approximately 1.2 billion, and I would take out, minus, or subtract, or net out this figure here, which is approximately 660 million, and then I would also subtract out the capital expenditure figure here, and I'll also cap out this purchase for the intangibles. So I would use that final figure as my free cash flow figure. In the case of ServiceNow, it is not a very consistent acquirer of businesses. You can see that they're not really consistent to that strategy. That is quite important for me to look at because it tells me whether the business has something that is organic working for it or not. In the case of ServiceNow, it's very compelling because it does not. So most of its business growth is organic. That's something that's very attractive. ServiceNow is a premium platform and it has a very compelling platform. The question is about how much free cash flow it makes, and I'll leave that up for you to make your own assumptions, but I just wanted to run through that really quickly to help you out. I hope you found that video useful. So the way to think about free cash flow is really about the earning power of the business. So you really want your business to grow over time. You want its competitive advantages to become stronger, or as Buffett calls it, its moat. If you understand what the free cash flow is, it will help you navigate which businesses to invest and which ones not to. Remember what Buffett says? Rule number 1, don't lose capital. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. So you really want to be in that situation where you say no to a lot of businesses. You got to be really selective. And some people will say that I'm being too conservative. I shouldn't be really thinking about stock compensation. So that's really your judgment, and you make your own assumptions on the investments that you make. But I'm just trying to show you what is the real thing that you're buying. So you're not buying the management team, you're just buying the business model's ability to generate strong free cash flow. So I hope you found that useful. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.